Hey everyone, welcome back to More Than a Face. Today I'll be doing a brow tutorial on the brows that I use pretty much every single day. This is something that I'm asked about the most all the time from strangers, from friends, family, as how do I do my eyebrows? And every time I try to explain it, I feel like I'm bombarding people with information and I have all these steps. So this is what I'm going to refer people to from now on. Thankfully, I have it all in one place and people don't have to just kind of look at me lost and be like, yeah, okay. So yeah, these are the brows that I do pretty much every single day. They're somewhere in between really full and still kind of natural in person. And if I get a little bit closer, you can still see the brow strokes, but they definitely are defined and pretty full. But I mean, I can kind of get away with it because I have darker hair, so dark hair, dark brows, I guess. I hope you guys enjoy. I broke it down into steps, so if you want something more natural than this, I still have pointers for you. But if these are the type of brows that you would like to achieve, then keep on watching. Well, hello there. Welcome to the sad story that is my natural brows without any product in them. I overpluck them. Number one hint of advice I would give you for your eyebrows is don't overpluck them. Keep your brows natural. Go to a professional, find somebody on Instagram that has really good results that you like. Don't ever touch your own eyebrows because I did that and they're looking a lot better now, but my natural brows used to be a lot fuller than they are right now. My next hint of advice is to figure out what kind of products work for your type of skin. Now you can put an eyeshadow primer down, like the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer or the Too Faced primer. If you have really oily skin and you feel like your brow products aren't staying on, then whatever eyeshadow primer you use that's close to your skin color and or transparent, you can put that on top of your brows so that whatever product sits on top of it will sit nicer. I personally don't prime my eyebrows anymore. I used to do that a lot, but I found that since I've been using cream products, one, they work better without a primer anyways, and two, since I'm setting it with a powder when I'm done with it. So anytime you have a cream product such as concealer, foundation, eye products, even lipstick, if you put powder on top of it, it's gonna dry down the formula and automatically it's gonna stay on longer. You can conceal and clean up your eyebrows with a concealer, but I don't suggest putting it on top because it tends to leave more of a harsh line, and a lot of times the concealer that you usually put underneath your eyebrow is going to be lighter than your skin color to make it pop. So if you absolutely have to line the top of your eyebrow with concealer, I would suggest using a concealer the same color as your skin. That way you don't have this surrounding strip of light concealer around your eyebrows. It looks nice underneath, but on top sometimes it just makes it too obvious that you concealed your eyebrows. Next, I would suggest figuring out what type of brow that you want and what kind of products work for you. So I would suggest trying all of them and seeing what works best for you, because these are the products that I use on my skin because they work well with my skin type, with the type of brow that I want, but the same exact products might not exactly work for you. Last but not least, there's the quote-unquote golden rule that if you have dark hairs, you should go two shades lighter with your product. And if you have lighter hair, you should go 2 shades darker. That's a really good rule of thumb to suggest to beginners to kind of give you a place where you want to start. But I'm not going to be the one to tell you that you shouldn't do your brows a certain way. So if you're like me and you have dark hair and you want dark brows to match your dark hair, like that's completely fine. I'm okay with a more harsh brow to frame my face. But if you want to go more natural, then you can go with the rule that your brows should be lighter than your hair. So going over the products that I use, I have 2 different brushes that I apply products with. I have my e.l.f. small angled brush, my Anastasia brow pomade brush. These two brushes are pretty similar, but they're not at the same time. This one is better for powder because it's a little bit thicker. I don't know if you can see the difference, but this one's a little bit thicker, and the bristles are softer, so it works better with powder. This works a lot better for a pomade or any type of cream product, since it's synthetic, which is always better for cream products, and 2, since it's so much thinner, if you want to create thinner strokes on your brow, you can do that. And with a pomade that's as dark as my eyebrow hairs, I don't want to just go in with something this thick and fill it in, and next thing I know I have like block eyebrows. Now if that's the type of look that you want, then I suggest this for you, but for something more natural where I still want definition, but I want you to be able to see my natural hairs at the same time, I would use a thinner brush like this one. Step 1 to applying your brows. If you decided to use a primer, you can start out with a primer. Typically, I do my eyebrows after my foundation, but before my eyeshadow. For a couple of reasons. One, putting on foundation around the eyebrows that you just did can it can be more tedious than you want it to be, especially if you don't want to spend too much time. So what I do is I put on my powder, because I don't use foundation every single day. I put on my powder and I do my eyebrows, because that's going to frame how my eyeliner is going to go on, how my eyeshadow is going to go on. It gives me the basic shape for anything that I'm going to put on my eyes. But for the sake of this video, I already did my eyeshadow, but I left underneath my brow completely bare, because I'm going to end up putting some concealer on under it, just so you guys can see the difference between putting concealer under your brow and not. I'm taking my NYX Eyebrow Cake Powder in the shade Blonde. So this basically just has 2 eye powders. One is lighter than the other. Typically, you go lighter towards the beginning of your brow and darker at the tail. So the rule of thumb with eyebrow shapes is that you line up the pencil with where the bridge of your nose, like next to the bridge of your nose. So not next to your nostril, but the bridge of your nose. And generally, you want your eyebrow to start in that line. Basically, both of my eyebrows are lined up with my nose. And if you want to figure out where to put your arch, you keep your pencil in that same area and you look straight ahead and you line up the pencil with your iris. So right where this touches your eyebrow is where you want your arch to be. So if you want to go ahead and mark that spot so you know where to put your arch and make it equal on each side, you can just leave a little dot so you know where to place that arch if you're not used to doing your eyebrows. And then generally for the end, you line with the brush in the same spot, you line it up with the end of your eye. And typically your tail should meet in that little spot, but I'm missing a couple hairs right here. But it pretty much lines up on this side for the most part. So that's the general rule. If you have problems with shaping your brows, again, I don't suggest plucking your eyebrows. Please don't touch your eyebrows. Don't make the same mistakes I did. So once you have all of your little markers down, you can start with your powder. So I suggest using powder first, because you're going to start to fill in your brows and it's going to make it less likely. I'm taking the lighter color for the inside of my brows. It's going to make it less likely for you to go in with those cream products and to overfill them. So this is basically just getting the general shape down for me before I go in with a pencil, which is basically the same color as my eyebrow hairs. So I'm taking an eyeshadow that's lighter than my hairs, and I'm taking the lighter of the two and just filling this part right here. I don't put too much product here because I do like making my brows look more sparse at the beginning. It just leaves for a more natural look. It gives the illusion that my brows aren't as filled as they actually are. So just to be sure that I'm getting powder in all the right places, I brush my hairs down so I can see where all those gaps were. You see all those little gaps in between all the hairs. Now I know where I need to go in and fill with powder. So I'm going to go in with the darker shade and my thicker brush for the powder, and filling in all these little gaps so that my brows don't look so sparse. So I'm not doing anything fancy with this powder. I'm literally just laying down the groundwork for where I'm gonna put in the pencil later. This doesn't have to be too precise. So as you can see, my brows already look a lot more filled than they were before, but since they're so uneven, I don't stop here. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with how my brows are right now. I don't prefer like a more natural look. I really enjoy having those sharp edges and all that type of stuff. So if you're more comfortable with only using powder in your brows, then you can stop here and go ahead and skip ahead to where I'm putting the concealer on my eyebrows. So I'm taking the brow pencil that is like this, that's the same color as my hairs. I'm gonna keep a really light hand with this pencil because I don't want anything too harsh towards the top, because that tends to give you a more harsh brow. So I fill in these little gaps right here where I want more hair, but not necessarily a whole bunch of product. Those tiny little gaps, and is making my brow more square at the bottom. So I basically do a straight line across underneath because that's gonna give me all the definition that I want, and then I'll go in and use really light strokes towards the top of my brows. So again, I'm just lining this underneath, and even though I'm going across in a straight line, I'm still using super light strokes. I'm gonna go in towards the tail and start to fill this in because the tail is usually the darkest part of your brow and the most filled in part. And right about here is where I kind of create more of an arch than I actually have. And then I'm just continuing these light strokes right here. And then when it comes to the inner part of my brow, like I said, I like to keep it with the least amount of product possible to give the illusion that my brows are a lot more natural than they actually are. There's a couple little gaps in this area that I always get because my brows are more sparse towards the top. Now that I pretty much have all the product that I want on my actual brow itself, I'm gonna go in with a brow gel. So what I'm doing, I always brush upwards. Brushing upwards is gonna give you more volume. So I brush upwards at the beginning of my brow and then kind of at an angle. And then I just let these hairs sit downward because it's all coming together at the tail anyway. So these hairs can sit down. Okay, so now that I'm completely done putting product on my brows themselves, I'm using the e.l.f. Professional Concealer Brush. And I have the NYX Studio Photogenic Concealer. So starting with underneath my brows, I'm taking the shade that's lighter. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this on the back of my hand. That way I can control how much product I actually have on my brush. I'm just going to put a little bit of this product because a little bit really does go a long way with this concealer. I'm going to run this along where I put that product. Now, I don't really suggest taking this all the way across because naturally the peak and the part that you want to stick out the most is really just in this area. And to blend that out, all I'm gonna do is drag this product down a little bit. And there you have a more pronounced eyebrow. Find an eyeshadow that's lighter than your skin tone that's similar to the concealer. So for me, that's this is the Naked Basics palette, and I take the yellow shade. You can tell I use this palette all the time. And there you have it. I hope that you learned something from my brow tutorial and that I could help you do your brows if you're not used to doing them. This is the one thing that I get asked about the most, and this is basically the simplest way that I could break it down. Well, makeup in general is something that really takes practice, and especially brows, because you have to figure out what works best for you. So even though this is how I do my brows every single day and these are the products that I suggest, they might not work for your skin or for the type of brow that you're going for. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something from my video. Don't forget to subscribe. I upload every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you all so much for your kind words and your support. I'll see you guys next time.